You have to go backwards before you can step forward.
What is that deficit within me, and what's causing this deficit, right?
If I start becoming better personally, naturally, organically, I'm going to perform better.
Welcome back, folks. I'm here with Reggie Brock. Reggie, thanks for taking a minute here. We're at SRC 2023.
Right.
A lot of people feel, and they talk to me about this, and it sounds like they talk to you about this more often, is they don't feel like they're getting the most out of themselves in their professional setting, in their personal life. Why is that?
Personally, I think that people are neglecting prioritizing personal development first.
Okay.
There's an absolute symbiotic relationship between personal growth and professional advancement. You cannot neglect prioritizing personal growth, or you will stymie your professional growth. It's just they're interconnected. And so what I think people tend to do is work on the wrong thing. We work on things that everybody sees, and the problem really lies, and the work really needed is on the inside of us. We all have these hindrances. We all have these limits. We have these things historically that just we can't get rid of. We can't. They're just hard to release, so to speak. And so what happens is we hold on to them. We don't resolve them, and then we hit these plateaus in our professional life, and we go like, well, maybe I need some more coaching on being a better salesperson. The fact of the matter is, they just need to dig deep inside and start resolving some of these personal challenges, and it starts with prioritizing growth personally.
That's incredibly interesting. And have you found any, is this just your take on it, or have you found anything as far as studies that are concerned?
I felt it personally. I was convicted by it personally, like in my own life.
Okay.
And then I started kind of researching, and this is the only statistic I'll leave with you. I think it really paints this picture properly. Inc. magazine did a study not long ago and came out with this statistic. 47% of Americans' workforce today are self-proclaimed underachievers at work. Half of the people walking into your office tomorrow know that they're underachieving, and it has nothing to do with the owner's lacks. It has everything to do with deficits in their own personal lives. And so what ends up happening, and the study went on to say, what causes that? You know, why do these people feel like this? Now, my first gut instinct was poor training, bad culture, all these other things that would be something blamed on the company or the leadership team. That's not what the statistic bore out. It says that those 47% self-admitted underperformers say this: it's personal issues at home that I drag with me to work. It's these unresolved personal issues, money problems, marital problems, past failures that they've just not been able to get past. And so rather than dealing with them, they just drag them to work. And so it drags not only them as an individual performer, but it affects the entire team. And so I think that people have got, companies have to find a way and a place to where people can privately, discreetly, or whatever you want to say, can come to terms with these issues. Because here's the reality of it. If I start becoming better personally, naturally, organically, I'm going to perform better. Because I've made room for, by removing some of these things in my life, I've made room for the opportunity to polish my professional skills. But when I'm so consumed with, my God, I can't pay my bills, or my God, I can't, my wife and I, my kids hate me, or, whatever the issues are, if I can't get past that, and you can't flip a switch, okay, I'm going to think about this from, after 5 till 8 in the morning.
Sure.
It just perpetually moves forward, and it has this cascading effect on our lives professionally.
So it seems like it involves a heightened level of self-awareness to understand what is that deficit within me and what's causing this deficit, right? How did you get to that point? What was it for you personally?
So number one is awareness. I realized that I had deficits. And a part of that to me was I can't point fingers anymore. I really reached a point where I said my victim card has expired. So I'm going to have to take ownership of whatever my life looks like. So I became aware that there were things in my life that were literally like chains in me that were holding me back from getting better and producing not just results at work, but my relationships with the people that were important to me. I just reached walls. I reached ceilings to where I couldn't get past them. So I had to start thinking, what the heck is this? The first thing I had to do was become aware that there were deficits. The second thing that I did was I had to identify them by name. Man, I had to go like, I know what this is. And sometimes you have to go backwards before you can step forward.
Okay.
And so when I would see one of these issues, like resentment, see, resentment's like cancer, dude. And so if I could not let go of things with people, it stayed with me and it just trapped me. And so I started looking and going like, and I'm not going to give you the whole story, but I started thinking, why am I so resentful? And I could like backtrack to the root of the problem.
Right.
You see, we try to deal with just the causes. The effects. We look at it and go like, oh, this is horrible. The fact is you cannot change the fruit bore by a tree until you rip up the roots. If it's growing oranges, it don't matter if you cut the branches off or just eliminate the fruit. Next season, oranges again. So for me, I had to rip out roots that were bearing fruit in my life that I didn't want. So that identification was really important. Then I had to figure out, okay, how do I process this? How do I work through it? What are the steps I need to take to get past this and to see new production in my life in a different way? That was important. Then the last thing I had to do is I had to evaluate my steps. Like I had to be honest with myself and go like, all right, here's the plan, and you deviated from it. So either you give up and quit or you commit deeper and really do what you have to get past this point.
That's a really well thought out way to handle that. My question would be, it sounds like you're taking like an inventory of yourself and holding yourself accountable as far as the execution of that plan. Mm-hmm. How frequently were you checking in with yourself to make sure?
Sometimes it was moment by moment, man. I mean, there were some issues I had in my life that were so deeply rooted that once I saw them and I was aware of them, I couldn't get by it anymore. I was thinking about it constantly, about how do I get past this? And so sometimes though, once I started working, it wasn't as frequent because I was involved in a plan and it was just a part of me and it was like instinctual and then eventually it just became habit because of the practice that I put in. And then it just became a normal way of living for me. So I think the time that you think about it will lessen the more you do it because it just becomes instinct with you and a part of your day like breathing. That's what it was for me.
God, that's amazing. How has your life changed since you've managed to kind of move past this and better yourself?
Here's what I tell people all the time. When I started dealing with this stuff, I had a renewed sense of really an advanced way to think and live. I love creative thought. Mm-hmm. I love it. But when your mind is so bogged down with these hindrances and these limits in your life, you don't have room to think about. I could be in a room with a bunch of people and hear a lot of noises and volume around me, but I always listen to that voice inside of me above everything else. Mm. And if it's not tuned in and dialed in, and it's wandering and straying and reminding me of all of my deficits, I can't get a clear thought, much less anything creative. And so as I started and listen, let me tell you something, there's no magic pills in my back pocket. Dude, it's work. And that's why most people don't change. That's why most people can't see noticeable and lasting change. They're just not willing to work it. You put your hand on that plow and you're going to have to work and tend to this or it never goes away. But as it started going away, man, I had an advanced level of thinking and living that I hadn't experienced in a long time. I was able to be more creative. I was able to give thought to new creation and then implementation. And it just freed up my behavior based upon the new thoughts that I had to do better things than I'd ever done before. Clear yourself and watch what happens to your creative capabilities.
It's amazing because I know we're talking about, how the personal affects the professional, but it seems like it's made a profound impact on every essence of your life.
Huge. And I'm a better father now. I'm a better husband now. And I think what ends up happening is we've convinced ourselves that our state of being is a result of somebody doing something bad to us in the past. Listen, I've got stories just like you've got stories. There are people who have hurt us and have done ill to us, and the question is, how long do we let that govern us? And so, I've had people abandon me. I've had people reject me. I've had people do harsh things to me that were very, very close to me. And what I did is I took that as a defense mechanism. I'm like, ain't happening again.
Right.
And so what I do is I'd keep people at arm's bay, and I would keep opportunities at arm's bay because I wasn't going to be hurt again like that. And so once I started getting free from that, and I started walking into more liberty in life, so to speak, my God, I mean, just things came out of me that I didn't even know were there. Good things. I'm like, wow, where'd that come from? And it was just, once you get rid of junk and it leaves room for your real design to start operating efficiently and effectively, just watch out.
That's amazing. Well, it's like, if you're a hoarder and then you finally clear out your house and you've got all this room, you can actually have a living room with a couch and a TV, and people like to come over and hang out.
And so with people who are cluttered, even if they move to a bigger house, it's still cluttered.
Right.
So the key is clean the house.
Right.
That's a good analogy.
Oh, man, that's great stuff. So if there's one piece of advice you can give to everyone that's watched this, what would it be?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice would be this. It's not over until you say it's over. And if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, so to speak, you can, regardless of where you've been, who's been involved in victimizing you, you absolutely can get up and make life better than it is today just by tweaking the way you think, which will affect the way you live, and eventually your habits will become practice. Your practice will become habits, and that's when incremental change happens. Here's the last thing I would say. If you want noticeable and lasting change, you've got to work. And so my advice to you is, though you may want to, I'd love to change that, you got to get serious about working at it. And it doesn't have to possess you every ounce of the day, but if it's important enough to you to change, it'll be important enough to you to put a work in.
Whew. I got some thinking to do tonight. Man, I really appreciate this conversation,
thank you so
Reggie.
much for having me.
Thank you, no doubt.